It is now 2 minutes past 5 p.m. Stay tuned for Behind the News Long Island with Sergio Argueta. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
You may have wondered why this issue means so much to me. As many of you know, I have lived in Belmont for almost 22 years since 1994. My mother saw to it that I attended school, and so Floral Park became my second home. I grew up in two worlds, Belmont and Floral Park, while living in a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multiracial household. But it has taught me one thing. This is everyone's fight. It's not a racial issue, a village issue, or a town issue. It doesn't only affect Floral Park and Belmont. Valley Stream, North Valley Stream, Franklin Square, South Floral Park, Belrose, and Queens will all suffer the consequences of this ill-conceived idea. Development, quote-unquote, is defined as the act or process of growing or causing something to grow or become larger or more advanced. This detrimental plan will not develop the area or its surrounding communities. Words by organizer and Belmont resident Crystal Berger. Live from Strong Studios out on Long Island. It's time.
Check. Hey, yo, it's time. Hey, yo, it's time. It's time. Hey, yo, it's time. We interrupt your programming and bring it to you live from the front lines. Strong Island where the gangs fleeing one time. Police is brutal like the streets is. Let my speech increase the peace through your speakers. Beat our weakness, of course, is division. Caused by religion, race, poor, be in prison. Way more than the rich ones. The laws of the pawns for position. My flow expose flaws in the system. Look, you can't afford to be a bystander. Behind the news where the lies die, we strive for high standards. The real power's in the hands of the people. Politics, propaganda, it's all see-through. And that's word is served. The time is now. For the youth in our roots, gotta stand our ground. Listen Tuesdays at 5. Tune in to 99.5 East Ways. Reporting live behind the news. Radio will break from the norm as we advocate for change and reform. Behind the news, unifying while exposing the counterfeits. It's the new voice of empowerment. Behind the new platform for the people it serves, where the truth in your speakers emerge. Behind the news, where politics meet their limitations, you get the real, never imitation. Behind the news, it's time.
Buenas tardes, familia. Good afternoon, family. Welcome to WBAI's Behind the News Long Island. I am Sergio Argueta, the host of Behind the News. Thank you for joining us tonight. We recognize you could have tuned out by tuning anywhere else, but you decided to tune to us instead, and for that, we are forever grateful. Before we start tonight's program, we want to send our heartfelt condolences to our brother in struggle, Mario Murillo. Mario's partner in life, Maria Victoria, she fought an extremely valiant fight against cancer, and unfortunately she passed on. May she rest in eternal peace, and may her family, Mario and his children, find the comfort and peace they need to get through these difficult moments. I would also like to take this time to welcome the new listeners to WBAI's Behind the News Long Island. For those of you who don't know, this is the 1 hour a week that WBAI, the people's platform, the radio for the 99%, have decided to give us a platform to share and discuss the number of issues impacting the Long Island region. For those of you who don't know, you are talking about two of the most affluent communities that are dealing with struggles seen anywhere and everywhere throughout the United States and abroad. So whether you're talking about education, immigration, whether you're talking about poverty, segregation, any pertinent and important issue that we discuss on WBAI, best believe that it's impacting us out in our region. Don't forget, tune in to WBAI every Tuesday between the hours of 5 and 6 so that we can together collaborate and talk about the issues and challenges we have before us. But most importantly, the social activists, those activists that are doing things throughout the community to make sure that our great-grandchildren, our unborn great-grandchildren, don't have to deal with our battles, the ones we didn't yet win. So again, tune in every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. We're extremely excited. We're actually tuning in. We're broadcasting live from Long Island. This is a historic moment. This is our second episode. So I ask that you please bear with us as we work through some of the technical difficulties and glitches. We're actually going to attempt to go live. That's right. We're going to attempt to go live with our phone calls. So we'll be giving out a number. For those of you who want to know that number, it's 516-486-0806. Again, that's 516 486-0806. Tonight, we are talking about the casino out in Belmont. For quite some time, for the past year or so, the OTB in Nassau County was given a charge with actually picking a site and location as to where they could launch a casino site. Really focusing mostly on the machines, the coin machines. And so there was a backlash in the Westbury area, the Car Place area, and then now there's been a backlash in Belmont. There are a number of activists out on Long Island, organizers, individuals that probably didn't think of themselves as organizers in the beginning, that have taken up the plight and the fight to stand up for the community. They're extremely nervous as to what this will do. They call it an ill-conceived plan that will have devastating impact, a devastating impact on their community. So tonight we're going to be talking to an activist that has been at the forefront, but also joining us in studio, we have Mr. Adam Haber, who is a member of NYFA, the Nassau Interim Finance Authority out here in Nassau County. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to tonight's show. Welcome to Behind the News Long Island.
I'm happy to be in the second show. I feel like I'm in a historic moment. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, we're definitely, I think it's historic, but I don't know if it's just me, my family, and friends. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback. As you know, Strong Youth Inc. is a nonprofit that has been working quite hard for the last 15 years, and this is sort of our next, this is a platform that has been open to myself and to Strong Youth Inc. And so now we're going to be welcoming voices from throughout Long Island. So those of you that are tuning in and listening, make sure you follow us. The hashtag is Strong Surge, STRONG, and we also have, some a Facebook presence. We're going to build our Instagram presence. We just got a intern that's actually going to be doing some outstanding work, making sure we reach as many people out there as possible. So a lot of exciting things. But in the meantime, Adam, let's get started. Can you tell some of our listeners? Now, I know that, clearly today we're not necessarily looking for your opinion, in terms of, giving us your personal opinion on this project. But I kind of do want to, please, for our listeners, kind of describe what is NYFA, and, what this board is charged with actually doing.
Serge, NYFA was created in 2000 as a financial oversight committee because Nassau County wasn't able to school itself and make sure that it could balance its budget. To give you a very quick example, in the real world, if you made $50,000 a year but spend 60, you'd be in a deficit of $10,000. But then if you borrowed $20,000, you'd be even more broke. And with the county, the way they do their budget, you have a $10,000 surplus. They count as revenue. So the county's been doing that for years. They're completely out of hand. They're basically close to insolvency. And NYFA was put in charge by the governor. And it's not an elected board, it's an appointed board. I was appointed by Carl Heastie, the leader of the assembly, to oversee the county's finances, and they stay in place until they have less than a 1% gap deficit. That means generally accepted accounting principles, like the kind that you and I really live our daily lives with. You pay your taxes, everything else. Unless that gets under 1%, NYFA is going to be there, and they're the adults in the room.
And let's talk about it. I mean, this didn't just happen overnight. It's not just the current administration. This body was put into place more than a decade ago.
Yep.
Even though I'm 37, I think I remember that far back. At the time there was a Republican administration. Since then there was a Democrat in office, and people kind of argue and debate whether or not our finances were ever in order. But now that we have a Republican administration, we definitely know that things have gotten progressively worse, at least as far as what we're looking at in terms of independent bodies putting forward, statements and kind of look at the county's finances. So here you are, you're a member of this board now. In the interest of full disclosure, you did run for office.
I did,
You ran for county executive, you did run for state senate, and, pretty much you were appointed to this board. Your experience is that of a financier. You're very involved in the economic world, and
right.
So that's definitely one of your strong points. Let's talk about this project now. Let's transition to Belmont. You're talking about a project now on Long Island. One of the things that a number of individuals have often discussed, and kind of folks feel that this is the forgotten land. There isn't a lot of development going on.
No.
There hasn't been a new building that you know, that any county, either Suffolk or Nassau, can turn around and be like, oh my, look at this wonderful construction going on. Look at this development, really moving our businesses forward. So why then, you know, would anyone be opposed to a project like this one? Let's talk about the project itself. What is it? How is it proposed? And what are the facts in terms of it coming to the Elmont community?
Well, here's how it came about, right? The county has a whopping deficit. The gap budget, the real budget I told you about, is going to be close to $1 billion over the next 4 years. This coming year in 2016, they're going to have a $161 million deficit, of which $80 million that NIFE is going to allow them to bond, and $81 they got to come up with revenue to close that gap. And one of the schemes, I guess, or projects that they came up with, the county, was to put this casino in place, projecting $20 million in revenue. It's essentially out of desperation because there's no other way. There's no more one-shots. There's no other way to really balance the budget. And NIFE has said, this is a risk. We're not saying whether you should or shouldn't do it, but financially we're looking at this saying you haven't even gotten the approval of the community. It's going to take 6 months to build it out. We don't think you're going to have $20 million in revenue in this current year. So financially, it doesn't make sense to include this in the budget where the county is, because they want to push it forward desperately. And that's what NIFE oversees, the decision of whether their money is real or not whether they should actually do the project.
So in this instance, I guess what you're, you know, I mean, so breaking it down in layman's terms, what we're talking about is a project that's already being put forward. It's already in our budget, in the county's budget, and it's sort of pushed forward, even though members of the community haven't really been given an opportunity to think about, you know, to kind of voice their opinions as to whether or not this project should even take place.
The county's pretty good at just trying to like do things without getting community buy-in. Again, NIFA doesn't say whether they're for or against it. We're just saying we think it's completely unrealistic to put that revenue in this year's budget. They want to spend $10 million. They're going to ask to borrow $10 million, which we approve, to build a temporary facility in the parking lot, which is going to last for 18 months. And they're going to want to borrow $75 million to build a permanent casino-type facility. And as a financial guy, you wondered if that money was instead put into keeping the Islanders here and building up the hub, how it might be a different vibe and people might be more excited about the project.
And so when you talk, you know, I mean, clearly we've had some failed opportunities. Newsday has a site about, you know, has an article up regarding a number of projects that there was a lot of, you know, hoopla about how amazing these projects were going to be, and they sort of fizzled out. Charles Wang, you know, owner of the Islanders, owner of that whole Coliseum. There's some redevelopment occurring there. We hope to see some type of refurbished Coliseum, some housing, multi-development type use that'll create some opportunities. But here we go. You know, originally this project was supposed to take place in what we refer to as the old Source Mall, right? So it's where Fortunoff's is. It's sort of this mall that came about over the last 15 years, 20 years. In which, you know, most storefronts are now vacant. And there was a backlash against that particular project being there. Yet that's a little bit more central to the hub. Why go from the hub to Elmont?
Well, I think it's a sense of desperation. They need revenue. They got to make this, you know, in play as quickly as possible. But if you look at the fact that Foxwoods in Connecticut, their bonds were basically failing. It means they couldn't pay their debts, and that now that Christie's going to be announcing, or is trying to push forward a huge casino in the Meadowlands. You know, it's a quick way in government to not raise taxes, even though it is a regressive backdoor tax, if you ask most people. I haven't ever even seen the projections and how they came up with them to see if it's really a real thing. It's just a number that they said, we're going to make $20 million. You know, and I don't even know how they're going to come with that figure. That's why NIFA says we don't think that number is real. Number one, because it hasn't been approved yet, and they don't have a shovel in the ground. They got to build it out. It may happen in 2017, but it's just not realistic, and the county's in serious trouble. And
so what we're talking about, you know, I know that some folks are calling in. The lines are already blinking, but prior to, you know, one of the things I was thinking about is, you just mentioned Foxwoods. Foxwoods is a multifaceted, right? Like it's a full-blown casino.
Vacation spot, right?
Vacations there, hotel there. There's nightlife. There's a number of things that are happening there. That is not the type of facility that
convention center.
Yeah, a convention center. That's not the type of facility we're talking about here. And I think it's important even for our listeners out on the East End, those of you that are tuned in, to understand that what we're talking about here are video slot machines, correct? Quarters, nickels. I mean, I'm imagining there's dollar machines also, but there's no like card playing, no, the kind of games that may generate revenue, or even the kind of forums that may sort of complement, creating job opportunities and things of that nature.
Well, casino's designed to fleece you slowly with the illusion that you're going to win money, and once the money's gone, they'll probably see a spike in revenue the first couple of years, but then after that, it's just going to be the sad place that desperate people go hoping to make their rent or whatever. It's not an exciting place. Go to Aqueduct at 3:00 on a Wednesday afternoon and tell me how much fun that place looks. It's not, it's not an entertainment dollar. It's just a way to generate revenue.
And so the Aqueduct, which is also extremely important to kind of discuss, the Aqueduct is but a few miles from where this, when you consider where the Elmont Casino over at the Belmont racetrack would go, compared to where the Aqueduct is, it's not necessarily a long journey. So in a way, from a business perspective, and again, I have no MBA. Let me be clear.
You do in life,
and I have problems, balancing a budget at times. But clearly, if I was opening up a business and I'm thinking about making an $85 million investment, would I necessarily be looking to open, I'm here in Strong, we're a nonprofit organization. Am I going to necessarily go, open up a shop next to another nonprofit organization? Or am I going to be strategic in terms of looking at the population and saying, okay, listen, there's a need for services here. There's a lack, there's more opportunities here. I'm imagining that would be an important part of making a decision like this.
Look, there's access by rail, there's access by the highway, there's a lot of people in the New York metro area. They'll do just fine if it ends up opening up financially for a couple of years. But again, NYFA's job is not to say whether they should or shouldn't do it. I could see the community pushback on the project, but Aqueduct, if I was them, I'd fight the project because it's going to take out of their cookie jar.
Okay. Brother, for those of you who don't know, the Andy Gladdick is our producer. I see him squirming over there. He actually has a question. He's raising his hands. Brother Andy, go ahead, man.
Well, the question I have is New York State's been kind of playing with this whole casino song for a very long time. I mean, this has been an ongoing debate in upstate New York where they said the casinos were going to solve all the problems that the Catskills were having, the central New York region. This was going to be like the answer to everybody's problems. And they played footsie with a lot of towns up there, and these little communities spent a lot of money trying to get these casino licenses. And at the end, 5 or 6 municipalities ended up getting licenses out of the many, many more that were promised along the way. And the state charged a fee for that. And I'm curious about this because if you look at resorts at Aqueduct, their revenues are slowing down. Again, you brought up Foxwoods before. They're very close to having some major financial issues, and Atlantic City is seeing some of that heartache right now. Why does this song keep getting played in the Greatest Hits album when we can kind of see that this is becoming not the solution to every community's needs?
It's the quick strike. We're like a desperate community for revenue, right? Most of our revenue is on sales tax. While the population's flat, people are shopping online, so sales tax is dropping. Yet salaries keep going up, as they should as inflation goes up. And somehow they have to balance the budget, and the Republican Guard refuses to raise taxes, although they do it in a backdoor way with fees. So for them, this is the way they can quickly get as much revenue as possible into their coffers and just solve another year's problem worry again about next year. It's not a long-term solution. It's just a stopgap in my mind.
So clearly there's a number of challenges and issues that this project is going to have to face. To me, one of the most interesting things was seeing the backlash, seeing the instant organizing ability, if you will, of our folks over in of the communities of Carl Place, of folks out in that Westbury area, and really seeing them organize. And truth be told, the minute I saw that the political officials kind of backtracked on that, truth be told, one of my biggest fears was the fact that they were going to think about dropping this in the Uniondale or near one of the corridor communities, because clearly these are communities that are oftentimes disenfranchised, don't have the amount of influence that you would in a number of different communities. And truth be told, as a longtime resident of the corridor and an advocate for the corridor, I started thinking about how detrimental that would be to this area as well. You know, I mean, they were originally looking at, you know, placing it near the Coliseum area. But when you talk about gambling addiction being such a major issue this day and age, and they were actually considering it, placing it near the Coliseum, which is right next to Hofstra University and Nassau Community College. Not to mention the high schools that are within that, you know, a particular, you know, within a certain area. When you think about the impact that would have had, it was real nerve-wracking. You know, and I was surprised to see them go towards Belmont for a number of reasons. I know they had been talking about, I know they were pushing hard for a soccer stadium, but I also know that there were constituencies there that were interested in working with government to really plan out what the need of that community was, and how to best support the local tax base, how to create some unique opportunities. Because as you mentioned, Adam, I mean, that's prime realty. When in terms of accessibility,
it's the best left.
And you know, it's a wonderful opportunity. It's wonderful in terms of location, real close to the boroughs. So, you know, there's a number of opportunities there, and you know, it's been very, very sad to see that on behalf of the electeds. Nonetheless, this is sort of the position where we are, and now we have folks that are organizing. Adam, from a business perspective, in terms of thinking long term, thinking about, you know, what this county's finances currently are, but most importantly, kind of thinking about in the long term, making smart, cognizant decisions, quality of life, you know, thinking about the quality of life, the impact that this will have. What are some of the things that you think still need to be laid out in terms of how this community can make an informed decision? How you know, what are some of the questions that the elected officials should raise in terms of making an educated decision on this project?
Well, there isn't long-term planning, right? It's stopgap. So my daughter's 19 years old, and I would love her to move back to Long Island. But what is there to entertain her, for her to live, to work and play? There's plenty of model organizations throughout the country that have live, work, and play, commercial real estate, restaurants, great places, outdoor concerts, great places that people want to be. And as Long Island's age gets older, because the demographics are changing, because we have very low housing stock for rental properties for those first-generation kids who want to live here, long-term, you know, the sales tax is just going to decline slowly. It's going to be a slow death by 1,000 paper cuts. What should be going to this project, and again, I'm supposed to stay neutral as a NYFA board member, saying I'm not for or against the thing, but if I was king for the day, I'd make it an amazing place that was a place that drew people in. I mean, there's 56 million visitors to New York City every year. If we could cut off a small slice of that, the revenue that would create through sales tax, through economic activity, places that people want to live, you're on a train line. I mean, you just dream your wildest dream and imagine what that could be. You know, look at Chelsea Market downtown near the High Line. That was a dead zone. Now you can't even get in the place. There's so much you can do. Yet this is the quickest hit for a desperate government that needs the money desperately. But is my daughter going to want to move near Belmont if there's a casino in a parking lot? No, you know. So what you would do if you were the official is you would make it a live, work, and play opportunity that multicultural, multi-generational, that is exciting with things that draw you in. And that's my concern. If you look at the skyline of Nassau County up in the hills of the North Shore, you don't see a crane. You go to New York City, you know, there's a crane in every block, and that means opportunity. And that's the long-term planning that they have, and I'm just concerned.
Wonderful. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you tuning in, you're listening to 99.5 FM, WBAI's Behind the News Long Island, hosted by yours truly, Sergio Argueta. We're going to take a small little break here, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes to continue our discussion with community activists that, you know, is relatively unknown to a number of us, but, you know, he's definitely moving extremely fast and getting his name out there and organizing the masses. So we'll be right back in just a couple of minutes.
Every gambler knows.
Buenas noches, familia. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, family. Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to WBAI's Behind the News Long Island, hosted by yours truly, Sergio Argueta. Tonight, we are talking about the Belmont Casino, yay or nay. You know, individuals, this has been covering our newspapers. Channel 12 has been covering it, all local media, the local heralds, and a number of other local community papers that, are giving sort of some coverage to the backlash, if you will, of individuals that are trying to do something that is considered unconscionable by the residents of Belmont and Floral Park and some of the surrounding communities. Tonight, I am talking to Matthew Sexton. Matthew is a social worker by trade. This is my first time meeting the brother, but when I put a message out on Facebook and Instagram, seeing who was someone that we should reach out to make sure that we got a grassroots perspective on the issue. Without fail, 3 or 4 different people recommended that I speak to this brother. So Matthew, welcome to WBAI's Behind the News Long Island. Clearly, let's jump right into it. Talk to me. How did you begin to organize around this issue? Why this issue?
Well, I'm with a Floral Park Civic Association called the Southside Civic Association, and right before our December meeting, there was new speculation that they were going to open a casino through Nassau OTB at Belmont Park. And we knew we had a meeting coming up, and we knew that this was important for residents of our village to know, because we know the detrimental impact that a casino can have on our quality of life. And we ended up having a packed meeting with over 100 people where we presented, our case, and they were facts in regards to the financial state of Nassau OTB, the impact that a casino had on the surrounding community of Aqueduct, as well as what we can do as citizens who we can act to in order to make sure that this never happens.
So most people out there that are hearing civic association, for some reason that conjures up the image of 20, 30 people, right? But we know for a fact that the 100 that showed up to your event has kind of grown significantly, and so can you, number one, when you mentioned the ripple effect and the impact that it had in the Aqueduct area and the surrounding communities, what was that impact that you saw in terms of your research and what you've been looking at?
Well, one of the big things that really stuck out to me was DWIs. If you look in the 106th precinct in 2011 and prior years, they averaged ballpark around 60 driving while intoxicated per year. The first year of the casino, this spiked up to about ballpark 115 with as high as 125. And these numbers haven't gone down below 105 since the opening of Resort World. What happens is when you build a casino, there's not necessarily crime at the casino, but police resources, emergency services resources are moved from the rest of the community in order to cover something like a casino. And considering that we have 6 schools, within a stone throw of this casino, there's actually one school on Belmont Park property. It's a school, it's a grammar school for individuals who work for Belmont Park in the horse racing industry. And this casino is going to be right there. And to have gambling from 10 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night. And the kind of gambling we're talking about, you mentioned it before, we're not talking about poker. We're talking about video lottery terminals. Studies have been done, and they have shown that video lottery terminals have the same impact on your brain as if someone is addicted to crack or cocaine. They are designed to make you play till what is called extinction. The gaming industry went out, they did all of these studies, and they figured out a good way to get you hooked. And the worst part about this is, people that are pro VLT say, it's where people bet on horses. It's a natural place to put it. But you bet on a horse, you watch the race, and you have anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes until the next race. You have an opportunity to calm down and make a better judgment decision. With VLTs, you are sitting there and you are literally tapping a button, and you can place a bet in less than a second. And before it's all said and done, you could be spending your weekly paycheck that you need to take care of your family, that you need to put food on your table and to pay your mortgage, and it can all go down the drain on penny slots.
A number of individuals that have researched this also make the connection between, the adolescent brain, particularly how this is impacting, young males disproportionately. And when you think about the video world meets the gambling world, it's definitely a hook and a target for particular individuals. So as you start taking a look at the research, sort of the impact on Aqueduct and we start sort of making the comparison in terms of what would be the impact in Floral Park, what would be the impact for the local high schools, for, you know, the number of businesses in that area. When if I'm sitting on the sideline and I'm, you know, let's say I'm an Elmont resident and I'm looking at my taxes, you know, and I'm on fixed income, maybe my kids don't go out there. I'm home all the time. As long as my taxes go up, why should I care? Why should I care, you know, what the quality of life issues? I've been complaining about Belmont and the, you know, as well, because of the issues that are happening in that area. What do you say to me?
What I say to you is this is probably an excellent opportunity to get Floral Park on your side. Yeah, Floral Park and Elmont, we've had this huge divide called Hempstead Turnpike. And this is an area that, you know, frankly, it's been a sin that Nassau County, the state of New York, haven't come up with a way to develop this area of Hempstead Turnpike and Western Nassau to make it so that everyone wants to go there, to make it a destination place. And I think, you know, we may be differing a little bit on ideas of what to place there instead of a casino. But the one thing that we can all agree on is a sustainable project, something that will provide opportunities for both neighborhoods, Elmont, Floral Park, Franklin Square, a destination for people to go to. And really just give us some pride back when we go to Hempstead Turnpike. Because right now, you know, if you're from Elmont or if you're from Floral Park or Franklin Square, there's no reason to go to this area. It's, you know, it's fast food restaurants. I think the big business over there is a car repo, you know, outside of Belmont Park. And what we need to do is we need to make this a destination, give people an opportunity and a reason to go there so that we can build it up and actually provide an economy that can help assist Nassau County and get themselves out of this financial hole.
Now, some of the earlier projects, the proposed projects, some of the advocates were talking about, you know, some multi-use development going on down there. It wasn't just sort of like a one-track. There was a backlash against a stadium that was meant to be for a semi-pro team, I believe. I don't know the specifics, but I know that they were looking for a soccer stadium that, you know, wasn't necessarily an enclosed structure, and so people were worried that, you know, what kind of, you know, was that even good use of that? So there was a backlash towards that. Now there's a backlash towards this casino. Let's, you know, how do we, if you had an opportunity, what exactly would that piece of property look like? Not that you're a developer, but in terms of what you've been seeing, what are citizens interested in seeing in that region? What kind of development would make the community a little bit more happy?
Well, if I can answer from my perspective, because
right
I mean, I can't speak for the thousands of people that really without them I wouldn't
you
be where I
can't.
am.
No,
well, we all have our own opinions.
That's right.
But I've lived on Long Island my whole entire life. I've lived in Floral Park my whole entire life. And I've seen this fantastic manufacturing economy do for many different reasons not be the same manufacturing economy that it was in the past. And we have a Site A and a Site B. And I think what we really need to maybe speak about is, you know, one of the ideas is a SUNY branch. This SUNY branch can either help out Nassau Community College by providing allied health services, because as a social worker, I see how health services here on Long Island, they're taxed. We need more health workers. We have baby boomers who are going to need more medical care, and we don't necessarily have that infrastructure or those resources in place to train individuals so that we could sustain that, so we can meet that growth. And then the other idea is, you know, possibly a school that maybe either taught computer sciences, a technology-based school, so that we can start working towards the year 2020 and into the future. You know, I read an article a couple weeks ago, and, you know, one of the next big things may possibly be drone racing. Drones are big. The military is very big into drones and using them. And we could debate whether or not we think it's a good way to use them, but the technology behind it is something that's in the forefront. And we really need to start thinking about our future and how we can get technology companies back here to Nassau County. And one of the ways to do that is to train people in Nassau County to be the best in the country when it comes to computer sciences, writing programs, and developing projects, so that, you know, we're no longer talking about this technology from a military aspect. We're talking about how we can benefit our own lives.
I mean, I'm, you know, in hearing you make some suggestions, I don't think you'll get anyone talking about, you know, denying the fact that we need more technology. There's a number of individuals here that are doing some great work truth be told, when I do hear you talk about SUNY, for a second I cringe, and that's only because I think higher ed. I think about tax exempt. I think about the local higher ed institutions of Hofstra University, Malloy, Adelphi. A number of public institutions that are all off the tax rolls and not necessarily investing as much as they should in neighboring communities. One of the things I talk about often is, Hofstra University, and it's my alma mater, is literally right next door to Uniondale, within a few miles from Roosevelt and Hempstead. Malloy College as well. And while I have a number of colleagues that work there and are reaching out and are strengthening the relationships, it's still something that's relatively weak, and we kind of want to see how we foster, how we foster strong relationships. Go ahead, brother.
But that's the beauty of this whole entire situation is, unlike when they proposed a casino at Belmont Park and there was no discussion, there was no dialogue, we now have galvanized communities so that we can have a dialogue and really figure it out, because at the end of the day, it's our community. We have to live there. The politicians in charge, they get elected and either they move on or, they no longer work in office. They don't have to deal with the same things that we have to do for our livelihood. So in my opinion, you have to look at the positives that come out of the negatives. And the positives are communities like Franklin Square, Elmont, and Floral Park are now having a discussion of what to do next, as compared to before where we just kind of sat around and did nothing.
There's a lot of, good feedback that I'm seeing online. For those of you that are interested in calling in, the phones are open. The phone number is 516-486-0806. If you have an opinion on the Belmont Casino, whether it should be there or, honestly, I definitely want to hear from someone that can argue whether they're in favor of it. I feel like I reached out to a number of different individuals, including some electeds. Needless to say, I got no call back for anyone being pro-development on the casino, which makes me think it's not going to be built, right? Like, it's very difficult for me to believe that a number of the elected officials in that community are sort of going to allow that to just happen. So, please make sure you call in 516-486-0806. Let's make sure we get you on the air. Andy, you'll give me a heads up and let me know what we got.
You got it. One of the things I wanted to point out here is that Elmont and Floral Park have kind of often had an identity crisis as to, are they part of New York City? Are they part of Nassau County? This goes back about 150 years to even when they were building the racetrack. But one of the reasons that the racetrack even has a connection to the city was because August Belmont, the founder of the IRT, wanted to take his own personal train car out to the track to go see the horses. That's pretty much the only reason why that it exists in the way it does today. So does it behoove Elmont and Floral Park, while they're having this discussion, to like pick a side? I mean, do you go with Queens? Do you go with Nassau? Do you still kind of? I mean, even the streets kind of are weird there. You'll have a numbered street, then it becomes a named street when you hit the border of the city.
Well, we're all flower streets pretty much in Floral Park. I think what we need to do is have our own identity and kind of identify ourselves as the Belmont community. Not necessarily Queens, not necessarily Nassau County, but just focus on ourselves right now, because there are strength right now with our numbers. And again, we have this dialogue that's open where people are finally coming together and having a conversation and figuring out what to do with Hempstead Turnpike, what to do with this corridor, as you call it. And, in my lifetime, I can't really recall us having this conversation of how it can benefit both of us.
And so, Adam is still here in studio. Just in terms of that point that Andy just made, I think it's important even for us on Long Island, regardless of whether Floral Park or Elmont, considers itself part of the island, which I don't think there's really that much of a difference at this point. I think those that have grown up in the community, when you see the generation after generation in that community, that strong constituency that it exists, I think it behooves us to kind of, for those residents to look out for the neighboring Nassau County communities. I know that there's a congressional race that I think is going to impact that region coming up. There's a number of different opportunities. So as a result, I think there's going to be some discussion. So Adam, go ahead, man. You're eager to jump in.
Jumping out of my seat here, Matthew. There already is a great piece of infrastructure there, which is Belmont. Now you know that there's huge festivals around major events, Super Bowl, the Rose Bowl. Belmont's the anchor of the Triple Crown. Can you imagine if every year we had a week-long festival with the top stars in the country and a parade with real horses and really highlighting the best our community has to offer?
Yep.
And making this a vacation destination spot for an exciting week. I mean, we have the bare bones of it. We just have to have the vision to do it.
And just to jump in on that, it's something that doesn't necessarily just have to be Belmont Stakes weekend. Summers are long. Summers are beautiful.
Saratoga.
We need to take advantage of it.
Brother Andy, I believe you're giving me a signal of some sort. We got to work on these signals.
Yeah,
man.
we got a call on the line, Serge. We have Lamont Johnson on the line, wants to weigh in on the issue here.
Oh, man, Mr. Lamont Johnson. I can't believe you are our first caller on WBAI's Behind the News Long Island. Talk to me, sir.
Well, I'm very, I'm happy that the community is involved. You have both sides. You have two sides. One side is pro, one side is con for the building of a casino. You have to understand you already have gambling. I mean, horse racing is still gambling, so this would just be another form of gambling.
Yeah, but Lamont, as you know, as I'm imagining the village of Hempstead, right? And for those of you who don't know, Lamont Johnson is very involved in the village of Hempstead. My question becomes, what if this sort of comes to the village of Hempstead? Like, what kind of impact do you think it would have on your community? Let's say that right next door there was already something of like horse racing already going on. Do you think that would be something that's a positive for the community?
It matters how you look at it. Elmont is really like an urban, suburban area already. It's almost like an extension of Queens already.
Okay.
If you think about it, it's already an extension of Queens. It's not as suburban as most people would think.
Okay. So so I guess your comment is it's already happening. Why not let it happen? Why not let it continue?
No, I'm not saying that because there's some people on the other side, some people that I have a lot of respect for, such as Tammy Williams and Carrie Salages. They're against it, and that's the community that they live in. So I'm not exactly for it, but I do think that we need some job opportunities and some needs of employment for people in the area. And I think it could be helpful in that way.
Excellent point, Lamont. Thank you so much for calling in, brother. I mean,
I know
it's a real, I mean, there's a shortage of jobs in our area. There are, and that's something that individuals harp on. There's an opportunity here for employment. What do you say to that?
These aren't necessarily the jobs that are going to be sustainable. If you take a look at Aqueduct, many of these jobs are in the service industry. According to Glassdoor.com, they pay between $12 to $15 an hour. And what we really need in Nassau County is we need jobs where families only have to work one job. Where, a husband and wife, instead of working 2, 3, 4 jobs in order to pay the mortgage, to pay their property taxes, can work one. And if we could come up with some sort of a way to create that, even if it's just for part of the year, to create solid jobs for individuals within the community, it'll make this more of a sustainable project.
And again, I mean, just sort of to reiterate, this isn't a situation where you have hotels, you have, a major restaurant industry, and, you sort of have all these other parts of these full-fledged casinos that can sort of present opportunity, even though, we've already discussed that it's short-sighted, the belief that these casinos are going to be, generating resources and opportunities for the long term.
Right. And exactly like Haber said, I kind of equate a casino to an IPO. It looks really good the first couple of days and it goes a lot higher. And then if you're not one of the people that jumped out early, you're struggling as it goes below the IPO price. If you take a look at the Raceway Casino, they've closed, I believe they've closed their food court. They've laid off quite a number of service workers. So again, this will be a short-term pop for jobs, but we don't need a short-term pop. We needed long-term sustainable jobs.
All right, Brother Andy, anybody else on the call? I'm seeing some folks here telling me that they're online waiting to get called in. So, please take those calls. So, yeah, listen, Adam, as Mr. Sexton sort of talks about these different challenges and issues and what are the pros and cons, it's sort of like I'm listening to Lamont Johnson, who called in and is saying, listen, it's kind of what exactly are we up against here? Why would anyone oppose this? And I mean, we've laid out a couple of different points, but what opportunities? What are some of the things that should definitely cause pause for everyone?
Well, as an outside individual, not speaking with my knife hat on, but
Gotcha.
a person who cares deeply about Nassau County and its long-term viability, look at Atlantic City, right? How great is that? Look at Detroit where they had gambling. Look at Mississippi where they had gambling. It really doesn't revitalize the neighborhood. It sucks it dry. And it's not the kind of long-term development that you would think would attract my daughter back. I keep thinking about that. So if you said to me, you know, we went down to all the communities in Belmont and Floral Park and said, look, let's educate everybody. Let's have a conversation. Maybe we'll put a convention center in there. Maybe we'll make it like a huge destination for food and entertainment. And as an addition, we'll have a casino. You know, then the conversation's different. Then maybe you'll have real jobs and it'll be a vacation or a destination place that might generate real revenue. And maybe they'll tuck the casino in a place that'll be, you know, not easily accessible for schools. Then the conversation changes, right? And maybe you look at it differently. But as a standalone place, just, you know, put in to generate revenue, it's just not getting me excited. And I hopefully will die here many years from now. And my job is a community being involved in community, whether it's through the school board in Roslyn, I got involved after that big theft, or in NIFA, or hopefully one day serving public offices, to add value and make it a place that people want to come and grow and have their families be here and be excited about. It's just hard to get excited about a parking lot casino, right?
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, we have to look at the organization that's going to be building and running this casino. Nassau OTB, according to the New York State Comptroller's 2015 report, runs 8 locations on their own, and all 8 of those locations they run at a loss. The last big $20 million generator was the Race Palace, and that lost from what I've read, over $1 million a year. So for us to float, I believe it's a total of $85 million worth of bonds on something with a company that doesn't have a track record of running a profit. I don't think you have to be a Wall Street analyst to say this is a huge risk for the residents of Nassau County from a financial standpoint.
Excellent. Great points. On the line, Brother Andy's giving me the sign here. We have Ann that's joining us. Ann, can you hear us? Welcome to WBAI's Behind the News Long Island. Talk to me. What's your question?
Well, it's not a question, actually. What I'd really like to make is a larger comment regarding that, we have all these empty shopping centers sitting everywhere, empty retail spaces, hundreds of acres of land. Why do we not redevelop that if we want some kind of gambling, which actually I do not promote that. I think that gambling addiction, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, et cetera, I think this is highly problematic to bring that into your neighborhood. But that's another story, and that's another discussion for another show. But at this point, it's like we already have how many acres of land that are already vacant? Why are we not utilizing that land to redevelop it and use it, urban redevelopment and recreate it if that is what the community votes to do?
What community are you calling us from, Ann?
Well, I'm speaking from the Bronx, but I used to live out in Floral Park.
Okay.
So I'm calling, but I also would like to bring to mind another project so that all your listeners are aware of something quite extraordinary, and this is perhaps for another show, but in Poughkeepsie, New York, which used to be the old Hudson River State Hospital, hundreds of acres of land, thousands of acres of land, which are now wildlife preserve, are about to be torn down and turned into shopping malls and redevelopment. And there is a discussion about putting a casino in on land that the taxpayers already own and have paid for hundreds of years. So now the mid-Hudson Valley is facing the same kind of redevelopment thing that you guys are facing right there, and it's all happening right now. And people need to know about this, and they got to go online. They got to look at what is happening, because land that should be put back into nature preserves and natural parks and parkland and, community land and so forth and so on, because we already got acres of land.
I got you. And thank you so much for calling in. You made some great points. I think one of the things that we love about going to the lines is the fact that we never know where we're going to, who we're going to hear from and from where. And so when we think about, act locally, when we think about the kind of the kind of programming that we have here, locally means, we're thinking global but acting locally, right? And so whether you're in Long Island, whether you're in the Bronx, whether you're in Poughkeepsie, I mean, we got a call from Hawaii one time. What we realize is that we're all interconnected, right? And that these challenges and issues are not only in one community, but they're in a number of different communities. I know that the phone is still ringing, but unfortunately, we're coming on at 5:54, so we kind of got to wind down. Mr. Sexton, if I'm interested, if I'm a local resident in Nassau County and Suffolk County, if I want to sort of collaborate with your community, what's a website that I should go on and get some more info? Facebook, where do I find you?
Go to Facebook and search for No Casino at Belmont Park. Right now we're close to 2,000 members. We're currently organizing and calling legislator Norma Gonzalez in regards to a bill that was put in by legislator Carrie Solage to change the board of directors of Nassau OTB. Because we feel that this is the first step towards creating a better financial future for everyone in Nassau County.
Real quickly, I also know there's a march coming up. Do you want to make comments towards that? Is that sort of did that transpire? Is that happening?
We're becoming weathermen right now.
Okay.
By tomorrow morning, we're going to see what the weather reports are. If it looks like this storm is going to go south, then we'll move forward with the march. But unlike Nassau OTB, that's just throwing this problem on us. We care about the law enforcement in our community and the emergency services in our community. So we want to make sure that we don't put them in a dangerous situation, and we may postpone.
Excellent. Listen, folks, please stay tuned, stay engaged. That's what this is about, building a platform, building a community, igniting individuals, supporting their causes. Behind the News Long Island, Sergio Argueta. I have the pleasure of serving as your host every Tuesday between the hours of 5 and 6 p.m. Call us. Let us know what you think about the show. Let us know how you want to contribute, what guests, what forums we should be discussing. What are some of the topics that you want to see? If you want to be a panelist, Behind the News LI, one word, at Gmail. Behind the News LI at Gmail. We're broadcasting live from Strong Youth Inc. out in Uniondale via WBAI, the People's Station, radio for the 99%. Once again, thank you all for listening. Brother Andy Gliddick, we got some good music to take us out. Thank you for another great show. Please make sure you tune in next Tuesday, and we're out.